It's time for Business Minds Coffee Chat, an inspiring show about the journey to personal and professional growth. And now, your host, Jay Shear.
Hey, everybody, you are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am your host, Jay Shear, and I am super excited today. I have got a fantastic guest in the studio with me. My guest today is someone who brings energy, curiosity, and a passion for helping others into everything that he does. He's a devoted life partner to Denise and a proud father of two. He was born and raised in Queens, New York, and has made Palm Coast his home since 2022. He graduated from Yale University with a degree in molecular biophysics and biochemistry. He earned his doctorate of chiropractic from New York Chiropractic College. And when he's not working, you'll likely find him working out, inventing games. We're going to dig into that a little bit, and singing karaoke. Please welcome the owner and chiropractor at Palm Coast Health, Dr. Angelo Ippolito. Angelo, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Jay, it's an honor, a great opportunity to get people to get to know who I am. I remember actually listening to you at a networking group, and I never forgot you saying, "Don't tell me what you do, tell me who you are."
That's it.
And we could talk all day about what I do, and it won't scratch the surface. And we kind of maybe want some people to know a little about who I am.
Well, that was my reason for bringing you on the show today. I really wanted to peel back the layers of who you are. Often, when we get to know someone, when we find out about someone, it is due to what they do, right? It's because of their title. It's because of the role they fulfill. It's because of a position they have or what their job happens to be. And that really is only part of the story. And I know your story is a deep one. I only know a little bit about it. So let's dig in. I thought a good starting point would be for you to share with all of us, if you were to write your autobiography, what would an appropriate title for that book be?
That's a great question, as is usually the case with your opening questions. I didn't anticipate that one. The first thing that just came to mind is it's never too late.
Ooh, it's never too late. All right, so let's tug on that thread a little bit. So since that was the first thing to come to mind for you, it's never too late. Give me the backstory, just briefly, behind that. So it's never too late for what?
To reach your potential. So I will be 65 years old this November.
Wow, you look amazing.
I am anxiously waiting for my Medicare card. And I remember, Jay, reading an article a few years back about how the decade between 60 and 70 should be and is the most productive decade for a lot of folks. And that took me by surprise. And I said, well, I'm very happy to read that because I am in that decade, and if all things go according to plan, and it's not just my plan, it's God's plan, if all goes according to plan, I should do more in the next 5 years than I've done in the past 50. Now, the past 50, good stuff happened, great memories, a lot of mistakes. I'm very grateful that I learned very early that a mistake is simply a lesson. But right now it's, all these things that I've done and thought about are starting to crystallize. So the book, It's Never Too Late, none of these things materialized by 65, but let's take a look at Angelo at 70 and beyond.
All right. So thank you for the added context. I love that. And it's really encouraging to hear what you just said, that our most productive years are between 60 and 70. That's really good to hear. So along those lines, let's talk about potential for a moment. So I'm going to ask you to think about this.
Sure.
On a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being fully realized potential and 0 being absolutely none, where would you put yourself on that scale today?
66.
66. Okay. I mean, that was as specific as it can be.
I'm a 0 to 10 guy and 0 to 100 guy, and right away I'm saying, I'm going to pass. 65 is a passing grade, but there's more to do.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. And we may get the opportunity to talk about some specific areas that you feel that you can focus on to reach a greater share of your potential. And if we don't get that opportunity on this show, then you and I are going to have a conversation about that specifically. But continuing on, I would love it if you would share with all of us what's one of the hardest things that you've overcome in life. And as you're sharing that, I try not to ask multi-part questions, but I want to plant a seed here. So one of the hardest things that you've overcome, what did you learn about yourself through that experience?
Well, it's impossible for me to not go into part of my life that was rather tragic. When you said the hardest thing to overcome, it's pretty powerful, but that would be walking up the steps in my house in Long Island City.
Take your time.
Not having the words, but knowing that I had to go into the bedroom to tell my 2 kids that they lost their mother. God saved me again, and basically I just said, Mommy's in heaven, and that was the end of that. But to overcome that moment, and then that leads into a lot more, overcoming the fact that up until that point, I was not really a parent. So this woman, Fausta D'Angelo, who passed away June 22nd, 2011, was the primary caregiver. And I was a father. And I always say this event forced me to go from being just a father to a parent. And I was there. I provided. We had great times. But Fausta did everything. And thank God they had her. My son was 10 at the time, and my daughter was 8. And at that time, a lot of people stepped up wanting to help. Females in my life, my sister-in-laws, patients. And I said, no, I've got to do this myself because my kids don't even know that their father can deliver primary care. They have no idea. They've never seen me cook. They've never seen me clean. They've never done homework with me. So that was for obvious reasons, a very, very difficult thing to overcome. But I did.
So tell me a bit about Fausta. What type of person was she? How long were you married? And what happened with her?
We got married in February of 2000, and she was a school teacher. Crazy that she grew up a couple of blocks away from where my office was in Astoria at the time. And we had a blind date, and it was, just the right thing to do. She was just a remarkable woman. I knew from day one that, this woman's going to be an incredible mom. And life went on. We, had the kids. We moved the office to Long Island City. We bought a house in Long Island City in 2002. And, Jay, you never know. You never know what's around the corner. And it's actually imperceivable how this happened. So that Memorial Day, so we're talking 6 weeks before, 5 to 6 weeks before, we all went out for hamburgers. And the next day she said that she had, like a bellyache. And I'm like, wow, and I'm starting to say, okay, it's the right side. You're in your 40s. Everything said gallbladder, gallstones. So we went to a buddy of mine to get an ultrasound, and I remember he did it himself, and I remember the look on his face. And he didn't articulate anything to me, but I think he knew at that time. He definitely told us, look, there's nothing wrong with the gallbladder. I think you need to follow up with other doctors. Mm-hmm. And it was just a series of events, and we wind up in an emergency room to get a full workup. So she had colon cancer, but whenever you're dealing with cancer, you always have to determine what is the cell of origin. It was not a colon cell. It was a rare, to this day, I don't know what the name of the cell is. The pathology report just said this cell has neuroendocrine features. Neuro meaning nerve cell, endocrine meaning gland. This is like some kind of stem cell thing that when it went from the colon to the liver, it just blew up. So this from start to finish, we're talking about 30 days.
Wow. That's devastating.
Yeah.
I happened to read an article as I was doing my research in preparation for our conversation today, but I read an article about her, but it was really tied to the work that she did and how instrumental she was bringing the Hunters Point Library
to life. As a school teacher, so we get into Long Island City, and there's no local library. This is unacceptable to her. So she called up the local politician, and he basically said, hey, lady, you want a library? Get 5,000 signatures. Hung up on her. Well, he didn't know who he was dealing with, and she got those signatures. And it was just a remarkable thing. They finally built this library on the waterfront in Long Island City.
It's beautiful, by the way.
Beautiful architecture. There's a plaque in there that recognizes her. But when they did the ceremony for the library, everybody, including the mayor, all came and spoke, and every single one of them made thanks to her. And we were sitting right in the front, and it was an incredible experience.
And I understand that you said some words that were quite stunning, emotional, and beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Angelo, we are going to push pause on our conversation here.
Okay, good.
We are going to take a brief break to thank our amazing sponsors. My friends, you are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat. We will be right back. This is Jay Shear. Are you a business owner or entrepreneur trying to figure out how to improve and achieve greater results? If so, I'm speaking to you. I provide the tools, coaching, and accountability you need to gain clarity around your personal and professional goals, remove the excuses holding you back, build the mindset, leadership skills, and proven strategies to grow your business and become the best version of yourself. To learn more or to apply for my coaching services, call 904-236-0431 or visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com.
There's no business like show business like no business I know. Visit the Fitzgerald Performing Arts Center at Flagler Auditorium. We're about to release our new season of professional touring shows. Visit our website at flaglerentertainment.com. Sign up for our newsletter. You can be the first to know about our shows and special offers. And remember, every time you buy a ticket to a show, you support the performing arts in Flagler schools and you support our local economy.
Thank you so much for recommending us to your family and friends. When you need a 30, 60, or 90-minute massage, it's real easy to book your appointment online. MassageByNatalie.org. MassageByNatalie.org.
All right, we're back. And again, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am in the studio today with my very special guest, Dr. Angelo Ippolito. We are having a very deep and somewhat emotional conversation, but we're going to keep this conversation going because we've got some additional areas to cover here that I want to explore with you. First of all, I would love it if you would share with us who 1 to 2 people are who have left the deepest impression on you. 1 to 2 people who've left the deepest impression on you, and why in particular?
Huh. Well, this is going to sound interesting, but, Jay, I'd like to say my dad. I'd like to say that. And nothing against my dad, nothing against my mom. If we go back to it's never too late, well, one question should be, well, why did it take so late? And I've given this a lot of thought, and my upbringing was good, a lot of good memories, but my parents weren't really that hands-on. My father used to play it off, well, I'm going to give my son space, he can make his own decisions, and that's kind of cool, but there are going to be times when you really would like to sit down at the kitchen table with your parents. And, for example, I went to Yale. I made that decision myself. And another example, you're filling out college applications. And I was recruited by Yale for football. I was a really good punter, so that helped me get in. But that's the only college that I applied to. And if you think about the admission acceptance rate, that's stupid. And the only other school I thought about applying to was Brown. And I didn't fill out the application because I didn't want it for the $50 for the application. So there's a poverty mentality there. There's a lot going on. But anyway, back to, I'd like to say, my dad. So this whole Yale thing, actually, it's why I'm a chiropractor. A lot of tangents we can go on here. But let's just say that when I left Yale, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was pushed to become a medical doctor since I'm a kid, and I never questioned it.
Pushed by?
Parents, family.
Okay.
My grandfather came from Sicily, and that was the plan for him, but something went wrong. I'm his namesake, so you're going to be a medical doctor. And I never thought about it. Like, this is great. Why wouldn't I want to do this? And this is a whole, beyond the scope of this show, but I had a cathartic epiphany type moment at Yale when we were signing up for the MCAT, which is the test to go into medical school, and something just said, are you really sure that you want to do this? And Jay, that opened up a Pandora's box you cannot believe. My parents were mortified. I understand why now. And I convinced them to let me take a year off, which turned into 6. Let's talk about those 6 years. Where did Angelo hide? Because I couldn't be home anymore. It was just a disaster. And I got myself a job driving a limousine in Palm Beach.
No kidding.
So I was in Florida. Unbeknownst to me, this is like my future home. and I'm driving a limousine with a Yale degree, and the owner of the company, I'm going to answer your question sooner or later, the owner of the company, let's just call him Jack, took me under his wing. Jack grew up in New Haven, and he knew the Yaleys, which can be very annoying. And he was a street guy, and he made something of himself in Florida. Maybe he was mob. I don't know. Did I say that, Jay?
No, I didn't hear you say that.
But he treated me like his son, and I learned more from this guy. And the final touch was, at that point, I had given up on going back to school. I knew what a chiropractor was. That's a good part of the story. But I'm working, I'm making money, I'm happy. You know, it's all great. And I'm walking, the cars were parked at the Palm Beach Hotel. And I'm walking in the lobby one way, and he's coming the other way, and he grabs my hand, and he says, I just want to let you know that you're doing such an amazing job. And then he looks me right in the eye, and he says, but it breaks my heart that you never became a doctor. And he walked away. He knew exactly what to say to me. 6 months later, I'm out.
Amazing. So Jack is one.
Yeah, we won't give his last name because
that's okay.
We don't want to give his last name.
Sure. No, I understand. All right. Well, that's a really interesting tangent, yet it ties into the how you got into what you're doing today.
Oh.
So summarize for me the why behind the work that you do today. So if you can distill without too much additional information, just summarize for me from the heart, why do you do what you do?
Well, I do want to take 15 seconds to tell you that I learned what a chiropractor was on a limousine job. I drove 6 guys, a bachelor party. They were all chiropractors. And they basically said to me, what are you doing, man? I told them my story. By the end of that night, this is what I want to do. These guys were all in shape. They were all happy. They were talking to me about their patients. This is what you should be doing.
Okay.
I'm
now,
sold.
I want to stop you there for a moment because what and thank you for sharing that. You had a visual and you were excited about something based on what these 6 guys said, right? They're in shape. They're talking about the physicality side of it. They're talking about what they do and blah, 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 right?
Yep.
All of that stuff. I want to go deeper. I want to know why you do it.
Because I've had a passion for health since I'm a teenager. And my mother watched Jack LaLanne. I have memories of watching Jack LaLanne on TV. This man is my mentor. I actually think I'm the second coming of this man. Do you know he's a chiropractor, by the way? Right. Jack LaLanne was so ahead of his time. And you can go on YouTube, and his shows are there. And he's doing his gymnastics, and he's telling you how to eat, how to think, and how to smile. And it always had an impact on me. And I say to people all the time, back pain is my job, but overall health is my passion. So this has been a burning desire in me since I'm a teenager, and I just didn't know it. I didn't realize it. And now I'm trying to make connections between a career, and I'm saying, wait a minute, all these things that I've been thinking about, and I didn't have any formal education. I didn't learn anything about health at Yale, but I said, this is an opportunity for me to step up and basically help people in my way.
So Jack LaLanne was instrumental.
Absolutely.
Although Jack doesn't know it.
That's 2 Jacks.
That's 2 Jacks. How about that? There's something to that.
That's good enough to open up in a poker game.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yes.
Excellent. How did you and Denise meet?
Denise and I went to the same chiropractic college. So we actually were in the same room. We met unofficially 1988. Fate would have it that she dated a person in our class and married that person and got divorced, and that's the end of that story. And actually, before Fausta, I was married to somebody, similar situation, met her, got married, got divorced. Okay. Here's an amazing part of the story. Fausta's cousin, Denise, has a love for the Italian language, and she was in a Italian club in New York.
Okay.
And Fausta's cousin was also in that club. And now Fausta's cousin is telling the story about how she tragically lost her cousin Fausta. Denise hears, and my name comes up in the conversation. Denise hears this. And, well, I know an Angelo who's a chiropractor. Turns out it's me. And we hadn't spoken since graduation. Reached out to me on Facebook. It's been a long time. I just want to say I'm so sorry what I heard. I practice over here not too far from where you are. If you ever want to talk, and then soon thereafter, I went to her for an adjustment. I said, she seemed like a pretty sharp cookie in school, and I'll let her adjust me. Turns out she's amazing. And that's how that started. And lunch turned into a dinner, turned into where we are today. And I am a very, very happy, lucky man.
That's amazing. So I have one ask from you, and then I have one final question for you.
Shoot.
Here's my ask.
Don't ask me to sing karaoke right here, because this mic is really...
You sound great. You truly do. I told you before we started rolling that, when you started talking, I'm thinking to myself, well, this might be the new host of the show. You've got a fantastic voice. So here's my ask. I would love it if you would give all of us, everyone that's listening, everyone that's watching right now, including me, a challenge. What is one thing that you would challenge us all to do starting immediately?
Well, I'm not the first person to suggest this, but when you're meeting somebody for the first time, don't prejudge. Give somebody grace, because trust me on this, you never know what is going on in that person's life. Now, why I said that right away is because that was me. Very judgmental. And so that would be a challenge, to just kind of be consistent with that. What else?
I love that. So here's my final question to you. What is one of the greatest gifts that life has given you that you didn't realize at the time? And let's exclude family, let's exclude immediate relationships, but one of the greatest gifts that life has given you that you really didn't realize at the time.
That would be, because I carry myself in a certain way, I've got a lot of confidence, but it's a gift that I know how to keep it real and genuine and authentic. And I check myself on a regular basis. I ground myself. I bring myself down to earth. And I say, you know what, man? Just ease up a little bit. Be humble. Now this, and I wish we had a little more time to talk about how I'm recently very strong man of faith that has made a huge impact in my life. But that, I would say, has allowed me to go as far as I have up to this point.
Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. And Angelo, I want to thank you so very much for joining me today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. I have really appreciated the conversation. I appreciate your candor and your authenticity and your realness. I know when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. This isn't somebody who's trying to fake it or be something that you think other people might need you to be, and I appreciate you, and I'm grateful for the conversation.
And that was the case for a long time, but thankfully you're recognizing that it's not anymore, and that means a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jay.
Absolutely. And for all of you, I want to thank you so very much for tuning into Business Minds Coffee Chat. We'll be back next Saturday morning at 8:30. And until then, my friends, keep learning and growing and keep doing the work to reach your potential. Take care, everyone.